Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're heading into the shop. We've got some small but super heavy duty tables we got to build for a customer, and we're on a time crunch, so let's get to it. Oh, by the way though, if you like this kind of content, or if you like automotive stuff or DIY stuff, or basically anything and everything under the sun, hit that subscribe button. Let's get it. Now these tables that we're working on, we actually have two of them, and they were not designed by us. They were designed by actually a company overseas. I have everything already pre-cut. I've already got everything drilled. We literally have a 15-minute window to get these things delivered, so I got to get it going. So I'm gonna get you guys set up. I'm gonna time lapse this because, well, who wants to watch me work all this? I'll catch back with you here in a minute. All right, so we're getting everything set up, laid out for this first one. This is the bottom base that we're building to start with. And well, I'm just kind of getting the base runners in place, tacking them where they need to go, and letting it roll. You see me checking the squareness of these. I always do an X for checking squareness and stuff. Seems to be the best way to do it possible. All right, everything's good and tacked. Bring the forklift in, because who wants to be on their knees all day? And here we go with the welding, getting everything welded in nice and good. Making sure we got this thing welded solid all the way around. Now I'm using a Miller-Matic 211 welding on this. Does great, nice little machine, kind of small, compact. Here we go, flip it over, get the top side done. And you notice the way they designed this, the 2-inch square tubing is actually offset to the top of the base rails portion. Well, our first problem of the day, I was like, hey, what just happened? No bueno. Just can't ever have things go smoothly, can we? First I do them wrong, and now my ground is not grounding. Give me a minute. All right, got the ground fixed. Now I'm marking out the top pieces. These are acting as the receiver legs for the actual top part of the table. You see they have 3 holes in there. This table has 3 adjustment heights for it. Just making sure everything nice in place, welded up solid, making sure it's not gonna go anywhere. 12,000 pounds is a lot of weight, but it's all forcing downward, so it's not really too big of a deal. Now you'll see here I'm adding these pieces to the side. This is to give it some extra support for basically not tearing out the 3/16 steel. Nothing like a hot day in welding. At least I'm inside for the most part, but still hot as hell. But here we go, base number 1 complete. I'm gonna spare you guys the view of building the second one, and I'll catch back up when we get ready to do the actual top piece. All right, so I showed you guys a good hand saw. Well, this is a good metal cutting chop saw. I'm gonna show you how well it actually does. All right, so we got everything mitered. If you notice, I have these holes here, and these holes get a bong that is being made over in the CNC right now. So we'll get those welded in, then we can weld this top side up, put the legs on it, drop it into place, and then on to the next part. All right, while I'm waiting on him to finish up those in the CNC mill, I am going to go ahead and weld on these. So these are the legs that go on the top portion that slide into that, and they get these welded to them to stiffen them up, well, to make them stronger for the pin. And once again, tacking on both sides, and then I go back and weld the sides on these. Biggest thing is when you're dealing with 3/16, I mean, really, it probably didn't need it, but that's what the customer specified. what they wanted. Plus it also helps fill in the hole just a little bit because we're using some bigger tubing for the legs. This kind of helps just fill in that space as well. All right, just got all these welded up, so I'm gonna let them cool. While we're letting those cool, we are now gonna go over here and weld these little bongs into these tubes over here. And I'm gonna TIG weld those in because I just don't have a big weld to deal with. All right, I'm having to press these in just a little bit, make sure they're in there good tight, and then there we go, the TIG weld. We're just gonna weld around both sides of them and making sure they don't go anywhere. All right, now we're getting back over here on the floor. Seeing as I don't have my table cleaned off, I'm back on the floor, getting this thing tacked into place. Want to make sure we get it good and square, and then you'll see here in a minute, I'll put it on the forklift and do what I did earlier, weld on it. Put a few more tacks before I actually go through and weld, but that's actually the second one I went ahead and put on top of the first one to make sure I get it the exact same. Basically using the first one as a jig. And here we are putting the legs on that are going to go into the other legs that we've seen earlier that had the 3 holes. And all I'm doing here is making sure I'm getting them pretty close to being squared up, right distance apart. All right, so I just got them tacked because I want to go make sure these things are going to fit in there before I weld them. Hell of a lot easier to cut tacks off than welds. Fitting like it should. I decided to go ahead and lower it down to the second hole, and that way we'll just take it back in there and weld it up. All right, so getting everything checked out, seems like it's gonna work. I'm gonna leave it together and actually weld it with it in place where it's at. And we're getting down to the main stretch here, the last little bit of finishing this thing up, getting those legs solidly welded in place, making sure they don't go nowhere. And here I'm putting end caps on the ends of these tubes to seal them off. I'll put them on there, weld them solid, then come back and grind them, just give it a nice finished look. All right, we're gonna flip this one back over. I'm gonna do some finish grinding here. And I've got one other thing to weld on this, you'll see here in a second. I'm putting a piece of angle iron clamped on the top so I can take my flat bar, stand it up against it. This thing's getting flat bar welded around this top side, and that is there to keep the wood that we've got to put on top in place. I don't want to sit there and try to hold this thing and hold a square to it. Just take a piece of angle, clamp it down, weld it into place, and then the 2 ends, you don't even have to use the angle. You just go from piece to piece and tack it in and then weld it up. And I'm just stitching down along through there. I'm not putting solid welds all the way down. It only needs to be stitched. And here we are grinding the last little bit. Getting all the sharp edges. Well, 11:42, and we're putting the wood on the second one. But there's the first one, complete with the wood top. Well, we got them finished up just in time. There they are. So now we've got to head over to Peachtree City and drop these things off. We have a 34-minute drive, and it is currently, can't really tell, it is 12 o'clock literally. So Barring no traffic, we'll get there just in time. Woo! Yes, we made it, ladies and gentlemen, just in time. Literally pulled in at 12:43. So actually just a hair bit ahead of time, but boy, that was close. That's going to do it for this one. We'll catch you next time, ladies and gentlemen.